Alright, so today we're going to go over this packet. So, let's get started, shall we? So first exercise here, with a pencil and an eraser, draw the horizon line, vanishing point, orthogonal lines, and vertical lines in these 2-point perspective pictures. Label them all. So we're going to start with the horizon line. It's going to be right here. Okay? So you can actually see in this one, pretty good indication of where the orthogonal lines all flatten out and where the sky hits the ground. So we'll label that. I'm just going to label that HL. Okay. Now we need to find the vanishing point. So we're going to do that by tracing some orthogonal lines. So we're doing 2-point perspective. So how many vanishing points should we have? 2. Okay, so we're going to look at the orthogonals that are going to the right. We're just going to trace 2 of them until they intersect. So that'll be 1 vanishing point. The next one's going to be tricky. Okay, so we're going to look at the ones that are going to the left. Got this sidewalk here. The top of this building here. So this vanishing point is actually going to be off the paper, okay? So, VP. How are you going to label that on your packet? If you want to, you can draw a little arrow pointing off the paper and put VP. This is a really important point to understand with 2-point perspective. Sometimes the vanishing points are not going to be on your paper, especially if you have a paper that has a portrait orientation, meaning it's going up and down instead of sideways. Okay? Like we talked about earlier, we have a person standing right here. This is a person from above, okay? And they've got buildings here, buildings here. The buildings are all lining up with them. They're going to have one vanishing point that's this way, and the next vanishing point isn't going to be for another 90 degrees, okay? So there will be a vanishing point at each 90-degree angle. So if you want to think about cardinal directions, there's one to the north, the south, the east, the west, okay? So looking 90 degrees is a pretty wide field of vision. So a lot of times, especially if one vanishing point starts to creep over closer to the middle of the paper, the other vanishing point is likely to creep off of the edge of the paper, okay? So that's kind of an important concept to understand. So we've got 2 orthogonal lines, so we've got 4 of them, so let's label those. Orthogonal line, orthogonal line, orthogonal line, orthogonal line. And next we need vertical lines. So some vertical lines would be, here we've got one vertical line. Here we've got one vertical line. And here we've got one vertical line. Okay? There we go. All right. This building here, I don't necessarily like so much for a demonstration of 2-point perspective, but we're going to use it anyway. The reason for that is because I don't think that these streets are actually moving off at right angles, so I think this is kind of like confusing. But we'll use it anyway. So our horizon line is going to be about here. And we can find a more accurate horizon line by using those orthogonal lines and figuring out where the vanishing points are. But we'll just wing it. Here's an orthogonal. Maybe I'm a little off there. That might be a little more accurate. O, L. Another orthogonal. O, L. More. Yeah, I don't like that one either. A little off. So you can see I'm kind of correcting my mistakes here. This is important because we need to be really accurate when we're doing perspective stuff. And the more complex the perspective, the more vanishing points there are, the more important it's going to be for us to have that accuracy. Okay, orthogonal line. And we've also got vertical lines. As with one of the images on the 1 point perspective, vertical lines. These vertical lines aren't totally vertical. So this is something that can start to happen in photography. When we start using wide-angle lenses, we get kind of a skewed perspective because of the wide angles. Oh, let me get the vanishing points. Vanishing point. Make sure you get those. Vanishing point. So we get kind of a skewed perspective. It's kind of a fisheye effect. So you can really see that over here, but these would be vertical lines too, I believe.
Side of that building for you to log over? Right.
This one here?
Yeah.
Yeah, this one should be. This should be an orthogonal. It's a little off, but more or less. All right. So that should be a vertical line. This should be a vertical line. All right. So with the camera, we see that these lines aren't vertical, but if I was drawing them in real life, I'd probably make them vertical, because that's the way I'd see them, because I'd have to turn my head in order to see them. There's another thing that's happening here. You can see on this center building that these lines are starting to get like a little closer together at the top. And there's a reason for that, and that's because the horizon is very low. All right? And that's starting to put us into 3-point perspective. If we actually followed these lines until they converged, that would be our third vanishing point. But we're not getting into that because it gets too complicated for a lot of you. All right, so let's make some boxes. This should be simple because we've practiced this before. All right, so what I have laid out here already is the closest edge for a set of boxes. All right. Alright, so what I'm going to do for these is I'm going to trace, or I'm going to draw orthogonal lines from the top and bottom corners of each edge to each vanishing point. So I'm connecting the dots, okay? If I think about a dot up here, I'm connecting those dots to the vanishing points. Alright, next I'm going to figure out where I want the back of my boxes to be. And again, they can be anywhere I want. Yeah. Sorry. Just the sound the water makes, I'm sorry. Alright, so I'm going to decide where the back of these sides are. And then from there, I'm going to connect this point and this point. How do I know which points to connect? There's a couple of ways. One, I can think about this box. This box is above the horizon line. Alright? So I'm going to be able to see the bottom. Another way is trial and error. If I try to connect this to the vanishing point, I can't. It's already connected. Alright? If I try to go the other way, it's going behind the box, so it's an unnecessary line. If I want to draw a clear box, I could connect those, but otherwise, I don't need to. Alright? So, I'm going to go the other direction. I can't go this direction from this vanishing point. I already have a line there. So I'm going the other direction. Alright? And there's my box. Does anybody have a hard time with any of these? Good answer. Alright, so did anybody else have a hard time with the one on the very, very right here? It's because this one is dumb. It should not be included. Alright?
Not do it.
We should not be drawing things that are outside of the 2 vanishing points. Alright? It's not the way our field of vision normally works, so it's a bad place for it. However, I'll show you how to do it. If you don't want to do this one, you can scribble it out. I don't care. But this is how you would do it. So we trace to the vanishing point, we connect it. Now, there's another vanishing point way out here to the right somewhere. But for our purposes, we can probably just make these nearly horizontal lines, just a little bit of an upslope on the bottom, and a little bit of a downslope on the top. And then we can draw in the back of the box.
Oh.
So the problem with this one is it doesn't give you the other vanishing point. It only gives you one of the useful vanishing points. So it's a bad example. It should not be included. Are we good on this? Okay. So this is where things start getting complicated. So let's talk about how to do this. So, I'm going to start with the H. Well, no, I want to do one down below and one above. So let's do that. So I'll start with the E. How does that strike everybody? All right, so basically what we're going to do these letters is we're going to start by making a box to draw the letter in. Okay? So I'm going to draw the E coming off to the right, because that just seems like it makes more sense considering the direction the E's go. Okay? So I'm going to start this by drawing a box. So I'm going to connect the bottom to the right-hand vanishing point, the top to the right-hand vanishing point. I'm going to decide where I want the end of my E to be. Make that about, I like that better, about here. Okay? Alright. Now I'm going to turn this into an E. So I'm going to kind of sketch this out. If you want to be really accurate, you can actually line these up so that they're going to the vanishing point. But I think most of you should also be able to eyeball it if you just want to do it that way. Alright, so I'm making the letter E, but instead of having the tops and the bottom and the middle be horizontal, I'm making them orthogonal lines. Okay, so we talked previously about how when you start doing one-point perspective, we're drawing boxes using horizontal and vertical lines. And then we're drawing the sides using orthogonals. And then when we shift to two-point perspective, our horizontal lines turn into orthogonal lines. Okay? So if we think about this E, all of the horizontal lines in the E need to turn into orthogonal lines for us to draw it in two-point perspective. Then we draw the rest just the same way, pretty much the same way we did with the one-point perspective. We're going to connect the various corners to the vanishing point. Okay? All of these corners. The way I decide whether to connect a corner, I look at this and I say, is there space between the corner and the vanishing point? And if there's space, then I draw the orthogonal in that space. So here we can see I've got some space, but then I run into the E. So I only need to draw it where there's space. Here, on this corner here, there's no space. The E's blocking. Alright? Same with these two, same with this one, same with this one. This one here, I've got some space, so I'll draw my orthogonal line. Then I'm going to select where I put the back of the E. Okay? And then from this corner where the top of the back edge is, I'm going to connect that to the right-hand vanishing point. Again, I'm drawing a horizontal line, but since it's in two-point perspective, it's become an orthogonal line. And there's my E. I can also kind of draw another orthogonal in right here. I have to kind of eyeball where this is going to... No, I don't. If I connect this corner here, I can draw the back edge of my E right there. So that's my E. All right. So I also want to do the S because I think the S is kind of a confusing one as well. So for my S, I'm going to do the same sort of thing. I'm going to make some lines to kind of guide my drawing. All right. This time it gets kind of tricky because I have to draw curves, all right? But I want to foreshorten everything so that it sort of fits inside the box. So I'm kind of going to draw a curve to come up here, make my S. Curve's going to come down this way. Maybe something like this. All right, so I'm just kind of using the box I drew earlier as some guidance for my S. All right. If this is too hard for you, you can make a boxy S, okay? But I'd rather you be able to do it this way. Okay. So I like the shape of that S I've gotten by sketching it. So I'm going to come back in, darken it in with some of my bold, confident lines. And I'll finish off the perspective. All right. Now, I don't have the corners, so it gets a little tricky. So I want to think about, if I'm standing at the vanishing point and looking at the S, where do I see its edges? So there's one here that I see. This would be my line of sight that I was looking at. I'd see an edge here. I'd also see an edge here. The end of the S has two corners, right? And I'd see one here. And then I have these two corners over here. So this upper corner, I don't draw anything because I've got the front of the S blocking it. The lower corner, I draw just a little bit because I've got some space between the end of the S and this side of the S. All right? And then I'm going to come around here. Again, I need to make a line that's parallel to the front. So I'm going to kind of sketch this in, trying to keep it parallel to the front. Here it's going to get covered up. This line's going to be parallel to this one here. And this one's going to be parallel to here. Something like that. Again, I want to draw lightly. I want to sketch it. I want to kind of slowly shape what I'm drawing until it looks right, and then I can block it in. All right, there's my S. I don't like this too much. A little tighter there. Yeah. All right, is that good? Does anybody have any other questions on any of these? All right, good. All right, what do we like on this one? What do we want to draw? Anybody? Okay. So let's go ahead and do the table. So again, we want to think about this table as being a box, or we want to think about what's the smallest box this table could fit into. It's a good way to approach this problem. So we're going to start by drawing our box. So I'm going to make our table, well, let's start by drawing the box. So that's going to connect the top edge to that vanishing point, and this edge to that vanishing point, and then the other edges are going to go towards the other vanishing point. Okay. So now we're going to draw the back edges of the sides. I want to make this kind of short this way so that I have plenty of room for my television on table. Right? So here's my two sides of the box, and now I'm going to draw the top. Alright, so far, just drawn a box. Same way we've done it before a bunch of times. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start to shape this into a table. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn each of the edges of this into a table leg. I'm just going to go straight up the vertical here, straight up the vertical here, straight up the vertical here, straight up the vertical here. So we'll just have some vertical table legs. I'm going to make the top of this, or the bottom edge of the top of the table. So I'm going to connect that to my vanishing point. Because again, this is a horizontal edge. Since we're doing 2-point perspective, it's transformed into an orthogonal. I'm going to figure out where that hits the corner right here. Same thing here. This is a horizontal edge. It's moving away from us, so it's turned into an orthogonal. So there's my table. So now I can block that table in. Alright, so there's my table. Same idea for television on table. It's just two boxes on top of each other. Same idea for the chair. It's just going to be a table, but then it'll have a back on it, right? Okay. So here's the walkthrough on how to draw the buildings and the truck. So we complete these, okay? So this one's a little bit confusing because you don't necessarily know what to add. We'll try to figure it out. All right. So we're going to have the other side of these stairs. So I'm going to make those. The other side of these stairs are going to be parallel. So these horizontal lines are also going to be orthogonals, and they're going to connect to the left-hand vanishing point, just like these ones do. So we're going to start with the 1. Kind of goes down. 2, down, 3, and 4, and something like that. And to make the sides or the edges of the stairs, the vanishing or orthogonals that go to the right.
First.
What's that?
Would you be able to draw the orthogonals first to help with the
These ones I'm doing right now?
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd actually be probably a better idea. Okay? So now I can kind of draw these in with a little more confidence. Alright, so so there's my stairs. And you can see each point where these orthogonals hit the other side of the stairs, that's going to be where there's a corner. So it either goes horizontal or vertical. It changes direction at each of those corners. So let's see. For the edge of the roof here, again, that's a horizontal edge that's going to be going to one of the two orthogonals. So I can check both of them, but this one makes the most sense. If I think about this as the closest edge of the box, then it's going to be going this way as well. And then for the back edge of the house, it's going to go vertically, something like that. Okay? So that can be our complete house. We can continue to embellish upon it if we want. You could add a window, whatever. If we want to do a window, it looks something like this. Top, bottom, top, sides. But you can continue to add to it if you want. But that's the basic completion right there. Okay. So next we have a truck. I'm sorry, it's a trutch. Next we have a trutch. What's a trutch? It's a lot like a truck. What I can tell. Alright, so we're going to start by drawing the orthogonals going to the right-hand vanishing point. It'd be a real shame if I had to take away a phone today. Okay, so I want to send these orthogonals towards the vanishing point a little bit, just so I'm sure I have plenty of room to work. Alright, so now I'm going to draw the other side of this. So I'll start by making an orthogonal where the kind of top edge is on this side. There you go. And I'll make another one for the roof. And those are just kind of guides to help me with the other edge of this. Kind of put that in a bad place. So now I can draw in this edge here. This will be a vertical line. This will come around. This angle wants to kind of match this one over here. And that's where we want the top of the roof to be. The back of the truck. Down here. And I can also add some wheels. So these wheels are going to be foreshortened, which means they're going to be, rather than circles, they're going to be kind of ovals. So I want to be squished a little bit. Alright, I want to be kind of egg-shaped, taller than they are wide. So there's a truck. And a little width to the wheels if I want. Okay. So sometimes you're going to want to measure these out with your ruler and make sure they line up with the vanishing point. Sometimes you might want to just use your intuition a little bit more. I think once you get comfortable with all this, it's a little more of a mix of the two. But I think actually doing it with your ruler is the best way to start because it gives you a better sort of sense of how to do it otherwise. Okay, complete the fence by closing it in and adding detail. Alright, so we've got these 4 fence posts, 1, 2, 3, 4. Basically, all I'm going to need here is sort of a guideline for where the top of the fence is going to be. So, I'm going to say it's about here. Just going to draw a line. It's my guide. Okay. Guide. Top edge back here is going to be kind of like right here. Bottom edge I need for this one too. I'm going to connect the bottom of these 2 posts and the vanishing point. I'm going to connect the bottom of this post and the vanishing point. And the top. Alright, so there are my guidelines. And then I can just kind of come in with my slats. Again, these should get like a little bit wider as they get closer to the viewer. Kind of a method for doing this, but I'm not going to go into it now. Same idea here. Right. Bracket. All right. So there's our fence. Nice flower in there. There we go. Yeah. Yeah. That's what the fence is there for.
There we go.
All right.
Wait, can you go back just a second? Didn't see what you got.
What's that?
Just try to see what you got.
That's what created the home. Empty file.
All right. So here's some instructions for drawing your city.
On the back, 1 point perspective.
All right. So this is going to be your 2-point perspective. Oh, building. Building. So on this one, you're just gonna draw a building. All right. So you'll use the skills you had acquired throughout this packet. You're gonna construct a building here. Okay. Your final project for this, you don't necessarily need to pay attention to this sheet here. I've got a different sheet for you. All right. But I do want you to start thinking about your building when you draw it here and how you want to design that. All right. Practicing making your mistakes.